Greetings all. Like many Gen Z males, there's a fair bit going on in our lives, whether it be related to dating, finding jobs, gym stuff, personal issues, or anything of the sort. And for me personally, there's been a lot of changes in my life as of late, so I figured I'd share it in a raw talk type of video, from failures on dating apps, issues with employment, diet and gym changes, dilemmas with a house, struggles with my business, potential issues with my stock portfolio, and more. There's a lot going on, a lot on my mind, so let's have a chat about it, shall we? So let's start with a dating app fail. So I was hanging out with a friend the other week. We had dinner, we went for a drive, and then we just parked near a beach overlooking the ocean at night. Nice view with the moonlight illuminating the water. Now, this friend is one of those guys who'll jump on his phone even when you're hanging out. It usually doesn't bother me, but it can get annoying when you're telling the story and his mind half wanders onto his phone or whatever. But he wasn't going for a scroll on Instagram this time. He was on dating apps. This friend of mine is a huge dating app guy. He's been on them for years. I'm aware that many dudes these days have just straight up given up on dating apps. I have too, but he has not. His success rate is pretty low, but if you shoot 1,000 shots, one is bound to go in. So he's had some success in the past, if by success you mean a hookup with some low quality chick. And he's done that a few times actually. And they're like actually low quality. Like he shows me who these are. I'd literally rather not, to be honest. Like he could genuinely set me up with one of these girls like right now and I would literally decline it. Like they're not great. But on this night, he goes 0% from the field, Dion Waiters style. Don't lose that confidence, king. Now, I'm looking at his phone this time because like he's in my passenger seat while we're looking over the beach, right? And I'm asking him how this dating app thing works since I'm not on them. I think the app he was using was Bumble. It's one where you can list your height and political affiliation, which Tinder did not have back in the day when I was on Tinder, which I'm not anymore. Maybe all dating apps have that these days, but I don't know because I'm not on them. Now, naturally, we both go through the women on this dating app. You know, it's a thing you do with your friends, like, ooh, what about her? What about her? Asking for approval. What are your thoughts and whatnot? Now, tell me, what do you think was on the dating apps for my friend? Was it a bunch of nice chicks, or was it filled with the entitled feminist types? Bingo, the entitled feminist types. And as if that wasn't bad enough, they were all really unattractive, although I guess that was obvious by the fact that they're the feminist type. I was aware that dating apps were littered with women like this, but seeing it firsthand on my friend's phone was wild. Like, it was literally like his only options to choose from. It's not as if he found one smoke show girl but she didn't swipe back. He literally did not have any good options. And this was on a Saturday night too. Not sure if that makes a difference with dating apps, but I'd imagine there'd be more activity/swiping on a Saturday night. You know, chicks finding dudes to meet up with at clubs or something like that. So my mate literally gets 0 matches on that night, but as if that wasn't enough of a failure, the chicks on these apps were just terrible, simply terrible. Well, terrible for my standards, and I suppose our standards as a whole. We have differing tastes in women, but we both generally go for the conventionally attractive types, although my friend has a heavy preference for Latinas. He did swipe left on some chicks though since they were too tall for him, whereas I don't give a crap about height preference. If anything, I prefer her to be taller, but that's a trait that's very low on the totem pole for me. I care about way more things before I care about a woman's height. If only worked the other way around, am I right? So what am I talking about when I say they were terrible and they weren't conventionally attractive? I mean, they have abnormally coloured hair, excessive piercings, covered in tattoos, and worst of all, fat. Not to mention you can tell what their personality is like from their bios. So even if I personally was on these dating apps, and I did manage to get matches, who would I be matching with? They'd be these sorts of women. Ugh, no thanks. I already thought this would be the case, but now this thought has been validated. I'll talk about this in a future video, how much time you're wasting on dating apps and what you could be doing instead. My friend spends a lot of time on these. While he's on dating apps, I'm at my second job. While he's on dating apps, I'm on TradingView. While he's on dating apps, I'm making these low-budget-ass YouTube videos. There's pros and cons to spending more time on dating apps versus doing other more productive stuff with your time, but that'll be a rant and a yap for another video. So that's one life update, dating app failure, no matches, no good options. Next life update, job struggles. So I will talk about this more in detail. I'm about to go into a fair bit of detail, but I'll talk about it in more detail in a separate video. But almost 2 months ago now, I applied for a new job. For anyone who's new here, I have 2 jobs, an office job and a Wagie job. I applied for a new office job since it was paying a fair bit more and it had work from home capabilities, which my current job does not, as well as it being for a huge-ass company, which provides, generally speaking, more job stability, compared to my current role, which had heavily contemplated layoffs in recent times. So I hadn't heard back for like 3 weeks after I applied. I did apply really early on in the application, which is fair enough. You're going to need to give it time for all the applications to come in, but I had initially just given up on the idea. Eventually, they did call me back. They say, "Are you free for a phone chat?" I called them back in due time. They said on text that it'd be 5 to 10 minutes. It turned out to be more than half an hour. But that's more so my fault, I guess, since I love to yap. I suppose that's good for rapport and personability or whatever. Anyway, later in the week, they call me in for an online interview. This one goes for an hour and is with the entire team, if that makes sense. Not just the singular recruiter that I was talking to. However, at this stage, I've done a bit more homework on this job, so it pays somewhere between $15,000 to $25,000 more than my current role. Sounds good, right? Well, yes and no. So this job's head office is in Melbourne. Obviously, they're not going to have a head office in a smaller rural town/city like where I'm from. However, there are other jobs that I could apply for that pay literally $40,000 plus more than my current role. And this job was like a pivot from my current career path. Right now, I am kind of like one of the main guys, if that makes sense. A lot of things run through me, and other roles in Melbourne that pay 40 grand plus more than my current job are the same. I would be one of the main guys. However, at this job, I'd be yet another cog in the machine, which is fine. But the problem is more so that it was a pivot from my current career path. Right now, I know for a fact what my career path will be, should I decide to pursue the career ladder later in my 30s and beyond. However, at this role, I have no idea what it would be. Now granted, with a CPA qualification and work experience at a large Australian stock exchange listed company, I'd have no issues getting other employment, but I don't want to have to take roles I don't want to. My current role is something I have no issues doing for the remainder of my life. No annoying meetings with clients, no massive amounts of team collaboration, or any of the usual corporate politics shit. I'm kind of just left alone to do my job. Obviously, there's going to be some collaboration in meetings, but it's minimal, just the way I like it. So the pay and career pivot wasn't the safest or most lucrative decision. To make it worse, although they offered work from home, from my inside intel, it was expected you'd be fully in office for the first few months. They never said this over the phone, but with classic corporate Australia and corporate anywhere really, there's always shit like this that they omit from you when you're doing your interviewing. Oh, boo-hoo gamification, a few months commuting to Melbourne for a few months and then you can work from home a bit. Big deal. Oh, it's a very big deal. Because this office is at least a 1 hour and 40-minute commute one way. Add in a bit more for random traffic shit that always happens in Melbourne. And if you take a train, it's 2 hours. I commuted an hour each way from my job when I lived with my parents. Now that commute time has been slashed to 35 minutes now that I've moved out of home, I'm not going back to long commutes again. A 0-minute commute would be nice, but not if I had to spend almost 4 hours each day traveling to work on other days. And that's assuming they let you work from home. Who's to say the company doesn't introduce a return to office mandate in a few months? And the worst part is it literally wouldn't even be worth the money to commute this far. The petrol cost alone would eat up honestly all of the increase in pay once you factor in the tax you pay on it. And the train fares aren't exactly cheap either. So I'd only be taking this job just to say, hey, I earn $115,000 plus from my main job. And doing this job would also mean that I can't do extra nights at my Wagie job, which sounds backwards. Why would you want to work additional hours when you could just get that pay lumped into your main career job? However, the Wagie nights are actually becoming a nice fun social event for me, and potentially a way to meet women. Well, it's a way to meet women. Meet a potential partner. For example, I worked a shift at my new store the other week, and this girl I worked with was pretty chatty and giggly. Now, I think that's her usual personality type. Maybe it was just around me. I don't know. I've only met her once. Anyway, she tells me during this shift that I look like, quote, a Japanese anime character. I can only assume that's a compliment. I'm part Asian for anyone who doesn't know, and I have like the bigger Asian eyes, if that makes sense. They're not the usual slanted you normally see, which probably was the reason she mentioned the Japanese anime thing. And I have like fluffy, poofy, wavy, curly, spiky, slicked back kind of hair too, which I also imagine played a part. Anyway, near the end of her shift, she's like, you need to send me a picture of the cool room, which is where all the stock is, and I need to send that image to the manager to show what we've done. Now, although this is somewhat a standard practice at the supermarket job I work at, she didn't finish much earlier than I did, so she could have simply just sent a pic from her phone of the cool room when she was finished, and then it'd be obvious what the new kid, me, did during his last 30 minutes of his shift. But anyway, she's like, I need your number for this. Obviously, we exchanged numbers. Now, what do you think happened here? Do you think I sent the first message after my shift saying, hey, insert coworker's name here, here's the image of the cool room you asked for, I got so-and-so done after you left? Or do you think she texted first, after she finished work, having literally no reason to? Yep, she texts first. Oh, but gamification, maybe she wanted to let you know that that was her number. Oh, you mean the number that I already had in my phone when we exchanged numbers? So, yeah, she texts first. Now, what do you think the text said? Do you think it said, hey, gamification, this is so-and-so's number? Or, hey, gamification, how did you go with the shift? Or whatever. Or, do you think it was one of those female texts where they give you a cute nickname? Yep, it's one of those cute nickname things. First shift with her, by the way. So, she sends me this text, hey, Jakesy. Now, she kept getting my name wrong, since my name does start with a J, and I kept getting her name wrong, since she's from Nepal. So, she doesn't have like an Aussie/white chick's name. I'm used to my Olivias and my Ashleys. So we kept memeing each other back and forth with incorrect names during the shift. So she sends me Jakesy to continue the meme of incorrect names. Or maybe this is my name, who knows. One of her following texts says, when you'll get transfer. Broken English, since it's not her first language, obviously. But what she's referring to here is a store transfer. If you work at a big-ass company, such as Woolworths here in Australia, which is like, the equivalent to Walmart in the United States or Tesco in the United Kingdom, if you work at this big company, you can transfer to a new one. Instead of quitting your job and then reapplying at a new store closer to your new home, you can just transfer over. My main store is currently still my old one in the middle of nowhere, so she's asking me when I'm going to officially move to this new one. I didn't do this yet because the people at my old store are chill, for the most part, and also the chicks there seem to like me. At least they talk to me a lot more than they talk to some other guys, albeit they're nowhere near as straightforward and flirty as this one. Also, the work at my main store is predictable, which is what you want from a Wagie job. I wouldn't want to go to a minimum wage job and have insane stress. I don't know what it's like at this other store yet though, and it seems I've made the right call since someone else on a separate shift was telling me that he regrets transferring to this new store that we're both at, like this new one I've been doing shifts at, since his current manager in his department is a cow, whereas at his prior store, he was kinda in my situation, things were chill, people liked him, so I didn't want to gamble with that. But anyway, this chick is asking me when I'm basically going to move over to this new store. She's only worked one shift with me, and if anything, I potentially take hours away from her if I move over. Why is she so keen for me to work there? I don't know. Probably wants to see me more. Not much else she could be implying. I suppose there's a chance she's just friendly, but I got along really well with another dude I work with in a separate shift, and he didn't ask me when I was going to transfer over after our first shift together. I'll also tie this little section into a future video. I've seen more of the cold approach and Looksmaxxing stuff come up lately, mostly from rehab room videos, because to be honest, I don't keep up to date with that scene much. If it wasn't obvious from this little segment, I'm not an ugly guy, and besides being lean and having hair, there isn't much you can really do in terms of Looksmaxxing to be real with you. My teeth are fine, they're straight and white. Ooh, leftists be mad as fuck right now. Straight and white, oh my god. And my teeth are like big, if that makes sense, so I don't have some sort of gummy smile. I can't do much about my skin besides the regular moisturizer, shower, minoxidil, etc. that I'm already doing. Oh, well, minoxidil's not really for your skin, but you know what I mean. I'm slowly cutting, which I'll talk about later, so, getting a lean face, that's in progress. I wear shoes with a slight elevation in the heel, all the standard stuff that most people already know. Like with my work boots, I'll pick boots that have a slightly bigger heel than another. Same with my office shoes, same with my running shoes, shit like that. But Rehab Room showed some clips lately of some dudes talking about constantly approaching women to get a date, or shit like how to flip her switch or something, because apparently women are robots. Just gotta talk a certain way to get her to like you, bro. I'll no doubt have a field day debunking this shit, but it'll be pretty obvious if a chick likes you. Example, saying you look like an anime character or texting you first using a cute nickname. I'll talk more about this another time, but for now, back to the career/money side of things. So right now, I work an extra 3 nights per week. I have a full day at the office and then a few hours at Wagie job 3 nights a week, or 3 days a week, whatever. These extra 3 nights make up almost all of the difference in pay between the two office job choices. Yes, net I spend more time working compared to just commuting a larger distance, but I'd honestly rather work Wagie hours than spend it on a train, which can always have delays, or if I don't take the train, I'd be driving a lot, in which case there's always traffic jams due to fender benders in Melbourne. I'd rather be stacking shelves, chatting shit with friends, potentially flirting with girls, versus standing on a crowded train or being stuck in traffic. Also, if I wanted to cut my commute time down, I'd literally have to wake up at 4:30 a.m. when I do have work days. No, I'm not kidding. I have friends who work around the area, like the CBD sort of area where the head office is, and they say if you're not on the road at this certain time, you get stuck in traffic. And from where I live, the time it takes me to get ready and the time it would take me to get to Melbourne, I'd have to be up at 4:30 a.m. For reference, my current job, I can wake up at 7 a.m. and be at work by 8 a.m. The loss of sleep is not worth it. I need sleep for my health and also aesthetic purposes. I've come way too far with my gym journey to butcher it on a job that doesn't even pay much extra once you factor in all the extra costs and tax. But like I said, I'll talk more about that in a separate video, but Too Long Didn't Read version is, I applied for a job then realized the extra pay and work from home was not worth it. The potential work from home, that is. This office job debacle aside, I'm also having issues with Wagie job. So I work at 2 different stores, as I implied earlier. My old one back near my parents' house and the new one closer to my new house. So, problem is, because the old store is still my main store, they get priority to rostering me for shifts. So if both stores put me on a night shift, the old store bumps me off the new store. The problem here is, I go straight from my office job to Wagie job, and from my office job to the old store, it takes an hour. And from the old store to my house, I gotta obviously go back home, it takes 30 minutes. Whereas, from my office job to the new store, it takes 30 minutes. And from the new store to my house, it takes 8 minutes. So I basically spend an extra 45 plus minutes driving if I get rostered on at my old store. Not to mention I need to leave the office earlier, which means I need to work more hours on another day. I'll go over this in another video, maybe a video on my routine if anyone cares, and also if I end up deciding to make that video. But if I work all nights at my new store, because it's closer and I don't need to leave the office as early, I end up working an extra 1.5 hours across 3 days where I have night shifts. What does this mean? It means I can leave 1.5 hours earlier on another day. That means I can leave work at Fridays at 12:30 if I time my hours correctly. Imagine that, leaving work at midday on a Friday. How nice. But because my old store keeps hogging me, I lose that time, and I have to leave at 2 p.m. on a Friday instead. Still not bad, but that 1.5 hours basically covers my gym session. I could be home at like 2:30 p.m. on a Friday, after having work in gym for the day. That leaves me so much extra time for chores, yard work, YouTube stuff, or hell, even just plain on relaxing. So I need to tell my old store to stop putting me on nights. The issue is, since my supermarket job is for a big company, they have the typical corporate politics bullshit, and they can be vindictive. So they'd be like, fuck gamification, he's going to work here tonight. He's going to commute all the way here because apparently we can't roster anyone else on. So that will be drama that will occur soon enough. I can already see it coming. I mean, it's already kind of happening. The other issue is, I can get guaranteed hours at my old store, but my new store is pretty random with hours, so they're not as guaranteed. Like, it's guaranteed you get something, but not everything. Sometimes they give me a Monday, sometimes they give me a Wednesday, sometimes a Thursday. But at my old store, I can basically ask for whatever night I want. So this is another employment/money/Wagie dilemma. Do I tell my old store, yes, I want these nights, give them to me, and now I have to drive for 90 minutes in total per weeknight that I have a night shift? Or do I roll the dice and ask my new store for all the hours and risk not getting some, but only spend less than 40 minutes driving at night? My new store can't guarantee anything due to their rosters and budget shit, which is why it's not as simple as guarantee what you can from the new store and then fill in the rest with the old store. But hey, that's retail for you. I mean, to be honest, I have it good enough as it is with the amount of hours I can get. I'm sure most people would love these sort of employment hours in this economy. I'm just sort of getting greedy here, especially since the new store has a buttload of potential workers compared to my old store. Since my new store is in a much more highly populated area, and it's also a hotspot for migrants, especially student visa holders, and those people obviously need some sort of work to help get by whilst they're studying. My old store is in an area with 0 student visas/migrants, since it's not near a city or anything, so it's not near unis. So the only labour force are the local Aussies, mostly school kids or parents, all of which have much less flexibility in their schedules than uni students. hence why they keep giving me shifts at the old store and I can't guarantee anything at the new store. So, there's yet another life update, Wagie dilemmas. Next, we have gym updates. So, with my current work routine, that being 70 plus hours a week, I can't gym as much as I want to. I'm only getting to the gym like 3 times a week max. I have room in the schedule for 4 gym sessions, which is my intended goal, but unfortunately I'm just so tired Sunday mornings that I need the morning to just sit at home doing YouTube stuff in my bed and then have a nap before my 9-hour Wagie shift. I could easily gym if my body kept me to sleep and I got my proper sleep in on Sunday mornings, but it doesn't. It wakes me up at 6:30 a.m. or somewhere around there, my one opportunity to sleep in per week, and I can't get it. I may be able to gym 4 times a week again if I don't get the 3 nights at Wagie job like I was saying before, because obviously one of those nights I can just go to the gym instead, where I'm normally at work. But for now, gotta make do with 3. To make things worse, the gym sessions aren't even that long, since more volume than what I'm doing just leaves me too exhausted. I physically cannot push through a certain number of total sets in a workout. This fatigue mostly comes from the extra work shifts. Example, if I have a gym session Tuesday afternoon, I have just come off working a whole day at the office, like the day before, and then a night shift at the Wagie job, on top of the 6-ish hours I just did at the office. Thus, I'm too tired to function optimally. And when I do have a good night's sleep, the day following is usually a full day at the office and then a Wagie shift at night, meaning I waste my good sleep on just work days. Example, like Tuesday, I'll leave the office at 2 p.m, have gym, be home by like 4:30 p.m, and I can get to bed at like 9:30, 10 p.m. at night, so I have a good night's sleep, right? But I can't utilize that extra energy for gym the next day because Wednesday, I have Wagie job at night. Now, a hardcore gym rat would decide to sod off the extra hours for extra gains. However, that's not worth it for me. I get like, I don't know, $120-ish from a night shift. I don't want to give up like $120+ just so I can do a couple of extra reps on one set of a compound lift and having the ability to do like 7 extra sets in a workout. It's not really worth it for me. And really, how big of an impact will those lost sets/reps make in my physique? Yeah, sure, in the long run I'll barely notice the extra money, but I'll also barely notice the extra gains. So I'm doing what I can with gym at the moment. My diet, on the other hand, has had a very good change up lately. So I've been yapping about the cut will go crazy for almost a year at this point, and I'm still not shredded. That's what happens when you have shit to do outside of the gym. For example, whenever some of my family helps me out around the house with stuff, I buy them lunch. Now, this is always fast food, since now I live closer to fast food areas. Back home with the parents, we have none of that around our area, since it's in the middle of nowhere. So we're taking advantage of this new location. Obviously, if I'm buying them fast food, I'm going to get some for myself. Now, one day overeating by 1,500 calories ruins my deficit for the week, since I run a mild, slight deficit. Since I can't run an aggressive one, since I can't afford to be too hungry because I'm working 70+ hours a week. All it takes is 4 to 5 days of work around the house and my gym cut is delayed by more than a month. Not to mention, since I'm not gymming as much, there's less overall calories being burned per week. A nasty combination for the aesthetic stat. But it's fine. I'd rather be at 14% body fat for a while longer and have a nice looking house versus being ripped but having the surroundings of my house look like shit, which also means the house value doesn't keep up with the rest of the neighborhood. I have 2 houses on the same block as me selling for between $750,000 and $800,000. Mine is currently valued at around $710,000 due to the lack of development around the yard. So once it has had those upgrades, it'd likely be valued upwards of $750,000. Crazy. So all their yard work, concreting, etc. is done, mine is not, hence the sweat equity I need to put in. If it costs me my visible abs for longer, so be it. I could always obviously pay someone else to do it, but then I'd be down like $20,000 extra bucks. I'd rather just do that work myself with my family and not get shredded as quickly. Now that's my training regime. As for diet, lately I've introduced a few nifty hacks. Things like apples, ice cream, Chubba Chub lollies and rice are going to fill up some snack room in my diet. You may think the Chubba Chub lollies is odd. This exists because 1, it's about 11 grams of carbs/sugar, 44 calories, barely anything. 2, they're cheap. And 3, on Sundays at my Wagie job, I don't get my break until after the mad afternoon rush. This means I go upwards of 3 hours of working without a break. And since I eat my breakfast sometime around 10 a.m. on a Sunday, I'm famished halfway through the early part of my shift. And we have a lolly jar in my department, so we all snack on it. You simply cannot go without these since you need food to get by. And no, you don't have time to go to the tea room to get an apple or a banana because it's flat out. And chewing gum, which was my old trick, Also doesn't work as well as lollies since you're not consuming anything when you're chewing gum. This Chubba Chub trick basically puts 44 calories into my mouth, but it prevents me from gorging on 300 plus calories worth of lollies. Rice was always a staple, but I've replaced it with cereal on more nights. I've realized that the cereal puts me way over my calorie allotment, so I'm officially stopping that shit and I'm only having rice. Apples are a nice filling snack to hold me over when I get hungry. Ice cream is an add-on after dinner to ensure I'm full to the point where I don't go to bed hungry, but the main change I've made is swapping lean beef mince for kangaroo mince. Kangaroo meat is extremely lean, meaning there's barely any, if any, fat, meaning there's no fat calories. Even lean beef mince still has 20 grams of fat per serve. Well, per serve that I cook up for my portion sizes. 9 calories per gram of fat equals 180 calories from fat alone in these lean beef mince. Swapping this for kangaroo eliminates this. Combine this with a Chubba Chub lollies trick and rice over cereal, that should keep the cut going, even with disruptions from fast food. The reason I didn't swap kangaroo mince earlier is 1, I thought kangaroo mince was more expensive, which it's not, and 2, the last time I had it, which was years ago, it tasted like shit. However, I must have just ruined the batch I cooked, because the current batch I've been eating tastes really good. I was like, well, yes, low calories, but it's not worth eating it if I hate eating it. So now I've cut almost 200 calories from my standard diet per day with this simple switch. So this cut should continue after enacting these changes. Now, what should I look like when I'm lean? I asked AI, and here's what it showed for 10% body fat and 8% body fat. Now, I knew you looked bigger when you were leaner, since, I've been shredded before, but damn, if I look like this when I'm leaner, that'd be elite. So this is some extra, motivation to stick to the cut. If I can look close to this, coupled with my other stats in the game of life, I'll be a happy chappy. Obviously, I won't be the most ripped person in the whole world, but having a physique like this, on top of having my studies in the house, for example, that's a pretty sick accomplishment. Now, since we're doing a life update, may as well chat about the other two main stats, investor and brand. With investor, my stock portfolio, I'm currently heavily invested in mining stocks and the AI-related stocks as well. But as for mining stocks, it's notably silver miners, and I think it might be too much. I should probably scale back a bit. There's conflicting data on what silver would do in the near future, so I think I should just play it safe and trim my exposure to that commodity. Not sure what else I'll do with my longer-term picks. Lemonade and Jing Dong seemed like good choices, but they're taking their sweet time to play out. Usually my picks have had somewhat a decent rally by now, but that's the joys of swing trading. Nothing is certain. But the investor stat isn't just stonks. I also have my house. So I have my first tenant moving in soon. How nifty is that? Although, because he's my first tenant, I decided to be nice and charge him only $200 for the room he chose. If you saw any videos where I talked about my income, I mentioned how I can get $220 for a specific room and $200 for the others. Well, that guy has the $220 room now, but he's being charged $200. I didn't really want to push it since he's my first tenant, and I guess I can always up the rent later, but either way, I'll have my first tenant soon. I also wanted to make the decision a no-brainer for him, because the old place he was renting was like changing someone into an Airbnb, which he did not like, since now you have randoms in your house 2 to 3 times a week, and his old house was further away from his job than mine, since his job is in the nearby CBD/city, whereas my house is a lot closer to the CBD/city than his other ones. I have a few other perks, such as providing a TV and locks for the rooms, which his other place did not have. Because when you build a new house, right, the standard design doesn't actually have locks for any of the other bedrooms. It has a lock for the master bedroom, but not the other spare ones, which is pretty interesting. So I paid for the upgrades I paid extra to have locks in those extra rooms. I also have other stuff like central heating and cooling, but so did the other house. I could have easily justified higher rent than his old place, but I figured I'd make it a no-brainer for him to switch to mine. Same price, but closer to work, better benefits, no randoms in your house constantly. Easy decision. I can't get too greedy starting out. Same with any business, really. I can't charge $500 per coaching call or whatever other crap I could sell. I'd have to start off small. But either way, an extra $200 flowing into my bank account each week will really help with the cash flow. This $200 covers 30% of my entire housing costs, including rough insurance calculations, council rates, energy bills, etc., not just the mortgage. And as you can see from this chart, if I rent out all 3 rooms at $200 a week, which I will in due time, it covers 90% of my entire housing costs currently. Currently as in, maybe insurance will go up, or not maybe, insurance will definitely go up, bills will go up, shit like that. So at the current rates I'm paying, this rental amount would cover 90% of it. This chart has the third room in rent separate since I think my new tenant might bring his current housemate along with him, meaning my second tenant possibly isn't that far away. It's the third tenant that may be trickier to get, hence the separation in this little chart here. If rents are raised slightly, $10 per room per week, and we get 3 more rate cuts here in Australia, I can have my entire housing costs covered by rent, but that'll be something I'll worry about later. For now, we've secured tenant 1, and he may bring tenant 2 along with him. We'll see. Also have a lot of housework still to do. At the time of writing this script, I have a planned day off with my dad to do some concreting around my house, but it's forecasted to rain badly on the day, so this may throw off our plans, which is annoying because I want to get this shit done ASAP, especially since I have tenants moving in soon. I would rather have the house semi-completed. Ideally, I'd have it totally completed, but I'd rather have it at least pretty close. But yeah, what can you do? Now, last section, the brand stat. Channel is still stagnant, very annoying, especially when you consider what else I could be doing with this time instead. But I'll keep potting away, hopefully some growth comes sooner than later. But even so, basically every other stat, besides I guess aesthetics, has been improving lately. So I'll take a stagnating YouTube channel over shit like no rent, or no extra shifts at Wagie job, or being laid off my career job, or an underperforming stock portfolio, for example. Basically what I'm saying is, in my life, it could be much worse than just a stagnating YouTube channel, which doesn't even pay my bills anyway. This little collage here involves a lot of my achievements of sorts in my game of life. If all of these were improving, then we're on the right track. The brand is the only one here that's really stagnating, again, besides aesthetics, I guess, although obviously with my diet changes, I'm well on the way with that too. So I'll keep at it, and hopefully there's some growth soon. So that's some stuff that's been going on in my life lately. Thanks for watching. That is all.